If you're a podcaster that dreams of leveraging your podcast to build an online business with a steady stream of ideal fit clients, listen up. On October 1st, I'm launching registration for my online business academy for podcasters. This is the only online business academy specifically for podcasters that are wanting to build their business with a podcast first marketing strategy. If you're ready to put social media and paid marketing strategies on the back burner and focus on connecting with ideal potential clients with your podcast, this membership is for you. Now, this next part is really important, so listen up. I'm capping the membership roster at 50 total podcasters, and the price is going to increase after the first 20 podcasters sign up. Use the link in the show notes or go directly to www.podcastingbusiness.school to get on the wait list so you get first dibs on the 50 roster spots. I'm motivated to help 50 podcasters create a steady stream of meaningful monthly income with their online business, and I'm backing this offer with a $5,000 guarantee. I'm guaranteeing that you will bring in at least $5,000 in new revenue with new clients with your online business within your first 12 months in the academy. And if you don't, I will keep coaching you within the academy for free until you do. Head on over to www.podcastingbusiness.school for all the details. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. If you are a service provider that is looking to leverage your podcast to get more clients and build your online business, you are in the right place. We've got a rowdy September Pod Pals Zoom party episode here. I've invited several podcasters and listeners of the show onto Zoom, and we get to interact and create a cool episode together. If you guys want to be in the October Pod Pals Zoom party, head on over to my website. There are only 3 buttons on my website. Click the one that says freebies and click the one that says Pod Pals, and you can get signed up for October. The topic of today's Pod Pals Zoom party is 5 mistakes that are keeping podcasters from earning meaningful income with their online business. I know, another super long title, but I was like, I have to really spell this one out there. So 5 mistakes that are keeping podcasters from earning meaningful income with their online business. You know, when I started my podcasting journey back in 2015, I was earning some income, but it totaled up to $37 in 3 years. That was not meaningful income. I had like 12 cents from a mushroom coffee affiliate code or something like that. And I got that like month after month, and it ended up being $37. I was trying a lot of different things. I made all of these mistakes. That's how I know these are mistakes that I wanted to highlight, because I made every single one of them. And that's, the purpose of my brand, the purpose of Podcasting Business School and this show is to help everybody that finds my show to hit that fast forward button through these types of mistakes. So let's dive in, and we'll discuss these with my pod pals here momentarily. So the first mistake I see podcasters making that's keeping them from earning meaningful income is that your ideal fit clients are not finding your show because of the name of your show. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The name of your podcast, the name of your show, will either be the number one reason why your ideal clients find you, or the number one reason why not. So we want to make sure it is the number one reason why they are finding you. But unfortunately, for many, many podcasts, you're super ultra creative with the name of your show. There's no SEO, there's no keywords. We have no idea what it's about. And it's a roadblock to your ideal listeners / clients finding you. I talk about this all the time, especially with my podcast audits, but I've got 3 rules. I call it my perfect podcast naming formula. Rule number 1, when I read the name of your show, I want to know what it's about. Specifically, what is your show about? When I read the name of your show, rule number 2, I want to know exactly who it's for. And then rule number 3 is I need at least 2 search terms, 2 keywords that people are searching for a show like yours that you want to show up for. All right. So if you want a deeper dive into that whole philosophy, make a little note. If you're listening to the show right now, you can hit pause and go and download episode 449 of Podcasting Business School. I do a deep dive on all 3 of those rules to really help you set up your name so that your ideal listeners / clients are finding you easily and binge listening to your show. Very important. So that's the first thing. That's the first mistake I see podcasters making. Mistake number 2, too many interviews and not enough expert positioning. So I see so many people that are like, My social media is growing like crazy. My TikTok's growing, my email list, my downloads are growing, but no one is becoming my client. And when I see that situation, I look at their feed and I see almost 100% interviews almost every single time. And I'm like, if you only do interviews, you are the person that interviews experts. You are not viewed as the expert. And that is why nobody is buying your stuff. I see it happen all the time where people have an interview heavy show and they'll approach me and go, I just had somebody on my show that sells a thing that's kind of like a thing that I sell. And people are emailing me asking for their contact information, not mine, to go and buy their thing that I also sell something similar. And it freaks them out. And they come to me and like, how do I fix this? I'm like, stop doing so many interviews. So and then the natural question was, well, what's the ratio? What's the formula? That's how I came up with my 2/3 content rule. I challenge service providers to have 2/3 of their content on their show where they are positioned as the expert. That way you still have your third to do interviews. That totally works for most people. Like, hey, you can still feature other people. You get that networking factor. You get those podcast swaps. But 2/3 of the time, 2 out of 3 episodes, I'd like you to be featured with a solo episode or a coaching episode. I've been doing these new like call-in Q&A episodes. My friend DR that's here with us inspired me with that. So some upcoming Friday episodes, people have been submitting online business questions and I'm answering them on the show. Super cool. So, that's expert positioning. That's mistake number 2. Mistake number 3, you're trying to sell too early. I call this premature monetization. It happens to the best of us. So premature monetization, you're trying to sell too early. I made this mistake in 2015. I was on episode 6 of my health podcast. I had 0 social media following, 0 email list, like 4 people listening to my show, and I am selling directly off the show. I'm like, all right, here's my brand new online course because all my podcast heroes are selling from their show. I'm like, I got to do this too. I just thought that's the way that it was. So instead of trying to monetize so early on, let's spend those first 25 episodes. If you have 0 everything, like if you already have an established business, a list, that's not who I'm talking to. Like if you're at 0 followers, we need to build some credibility, build some expert positioning, show people who you are, what you're about, who you help, and how you help them without trying to sell them. Like let's date a little bit before we put a ring on the finger and ask somebody to marry us. You know what I'm saying? So we got to avoid trying to sell too early. I tell people like, let's get 20, 25 episodes under our belt before we start actively pushing. Now, that does not mean that we cannot promote something like a free workshop that leads to a discovery call that leads to a sell. I'm just saying, don't push that thing right from your show directly really early on. That's actually mistake number 4, trying to sell directly from the show. Like, I feel like, okay, so right now I'm getting ready to crack the lid on my new membership, the Online Business Academy for podcasters. So technically I'm promoting that I'll promote it on this episode in the intro and the outro. But to me, that's an awareness campaign. Like when I launch something new, if there's a time sensitive launch, it's important to make people aware of that. But there are so many podcasters that are just selling their course or just selling directly from their show all the time. I think that is a mistake where, I've got a process, a framework that I call the client conversion pathway, where I like to move people from my show, which I consider passive interaction, where people are following us, but it's kind of in a passive way, to active followers of like, let's invite them to a free workshop, or let's invite them onto a PodPal Zoom party or a podcast audit. So we can kind of take that next step and actually get to see what it's like to speak to me and work with me. And then we can maybe do a discovery call, or maybe we decide to work with each other down the road. So that's mistake number 4, always trying to sell directly from the show, separating that from like an awareness campaign. So I look at those in 2 different ways. All right. Last mistake. You're trying to sell offers that don't involve direct interaction with you as the coach in some way. I made this mistake early on, again, with my awesome online course that I was like, everybody's going to buy this. I priced it at $7. No one bought it. I was like, if I'm going to sell, here's my math. I'm going to sell I'm going to sell 1,000 of these a month at $7. I'm going to make $7K a month. This is easy. The math works out. 0 sales. But down the road, that course was good. But down the road, I figured out that podcast listeners are more likely to buy a thing if you are directly involved. So there's like a coaching call, a consultation, it's a hybrid offer. So I took that same course like 3 years later. I added some one on one coaching with it, charged $500 a month for it, and I sold the crap out of it. Like it was a winning offer, but I had to add the Adam factor in there where people will pay for access. And if we do the expert positioning thing correctly, we're building that up with our show, they're more attracted and more likely to say yes to an offer that you're promoting that involves direct access to you. And that's something that I infuse into all my offers now. Like whether it's the online business academy for podcasters, the podcast listener client conversion program, download growth club, people show up on that and they're actually surprised that I'm in there doing all the coaching myself, or I'm doing the onboarding calls myself. I'm like, yeah, that's a big benefit. I'm not, siphoning this off to minions or interns or anything like that, or VAs. Like I take a lot of pride in showing up for my people. You paid that money. I want to show up for you. So if you can have an offer where you're promoting that you're a part of it, I've just found with myself and with my clients that that type of an offer is much more likely to be purchased from a podcast listenership. So those are the 5 mistakes. I've got a bonus one, but wait, there's more. I made my notes and 5 sounded good, but I do have a bonus one. And this is more of a mindset thing. And I do see a lot of podcasters making this. You have business level goals and expectations, but you're putting in hobby level effort. This happens a lot in podcasting. That's a part of my tagline. Love it like a hobby, build it like a business. But what that means is have the passion and the enjoyment that you would have with a hobby, but we got to put in business work to build this thing. So you can't have these big, like, Adam, I'm going to make 10,000 a month and all this, grow my following, get sponsors, whatever, but then come and tell me I'm going to work 1 hour a week on this thing. Like those aren't in alignment. And I see a lot of that. This isn't working because, and we get down to it. And I'm like, you're spending 30 minutes a week on this thing, and just posting on TikTok is not going to be the only thing we need to be doing for 30 minutes a week. Like we got to build our email list. We got to, build expert positioning. We have to learn how to do discovery calls and build an offer that people actually want. So business level goals and expectations, but also business level commitment and effort. When I really decided to go hard with this whole podcasting thing, I owned a gym. I had 35 employees. I had 500 clients. I was 100% responsible for all these things. And I did that as a full-time job. And I also built my online business and grew my podcast as a full-time job. I had 2 full-time jobs. But the beautiful thing about it, as I built my online business and that platform via my podcast, I was like, one day I'm going to sell this gym, and all that is just pushed off my plate. And then all of a sudden, when I did that, I was like, wow, I can do a 4-day work week. And then I was like, oh, wow, no, I can do a 3-day work week with just the podcasting online business thing. So there was a means to an end. I had a vision with it, but I always put in business level effort with my show. And that was a big thing. So I wanted to add that to my list. I felt like that was important for the discussion here today. All right. Thoughts, questions, things that popped up, aha moments. Yes, DR, go for it.
I have a question.
Oh,
So,
yes.
okay. So, to begin with, I know the answer to this question that I'm going to ask, but I'm going to play devil's advocate. And the reason why I know it is because I am one of your podcast growth coach graduates. So, here we go. A lot of people, thank you very much. A lot of people kind of shy away from the solo episodes because, one, it's so much easier to have a dialogue between 2 people than to have this big monologue going. But another reason is they're like, "Oh my God, what do I talk about? What could what could there possibly be that much for me to talk about?" So, what do you say to those people?
Okay. Great question, DR. Certified podcast growth coach. Shout out.
That's right.
Um,
Who already knows the answer to this question?
so
Okay.
to me, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions around solo episodes where people go, oh, I do 60-minute interviews. That's very common, like 60-minute interviews. And they're like, I can't talk for 60 minutes by myself. I go, well, neither do I. The perfect length of a solo episode is you say what you need need to say, and then you're done. So I just recorded a solo episode today that was 11 minutes long. Actually, I recorded two different solo episodes. One was 11, one was 18. And that's still less time than it took me to do one interview. I could still record another one, and I've got 3 episodes done instead of an interview. Like, okay, I know this person. I'm not going to name their names, but I have a friend who definitely doesn't listen to my show that he hits me up only on text anytime he wants to. He's like going on, he's got a new book or something. He wants to promote stuff on my show. That's the only time he reaches out. And I go, he reached out. He's been on the show before, good interview and everything. But he reaches out, new book, love to come on the show. I go, actually, I stopped having guests. He's like, he was shocked. He was like, what do you mean? That just sounds like a lot of work. Only solo episodes. I was like, well, I think it's a lot of work, interviewing somebody like you for an hour when I can get 3 episodes done in that same amount of time. And I'm positioning myself as an expert, and my business skyrocketed once I quit doing interviews. Now, I'll do an interview. I think last calendar year, I've done 4 interviews. If somebody comes on my show, my audience knows like I really want them to be in front of this person. That's very important to me. But like the solo episodes, we can't hold ourselves to the same standard of episode length. It is simple. And when, back to DR's original question of like the content, if you're a service provider, you probably have an online course, or you have coaching, you probably have a system, you have principles. Like if you're going to build an online course, you've got 12 steps or whatever. Those are the things you need to talk about as solo episodes. And those are 10-minute episodes. Those are, 20-minute episodes, whatever. And you're just giving little appetizers. And my philosophy is I teach the same stuff on my show as I do when people pay me, but the value of paying me is I show you how to implement that in direct alignment with your specific situation. So when DR hires me and she does my certification, she is paying me. I'm teaching the things like my perfect podcast naming formula, but then I'm like, let's go through examples. Let's talk about your show. Let's talk about your client shows. Instead of doing this, I would do that. We get specific. So like you can teach what you teach from a paid perspective. Everybody should, hold back that special 1% or something like that they only get when they pay you. But so many people are shy about that. And I see all this real high surface level solo episode stuff. I'm like, man, I felt like there was another action step in there we could have given. And they lock in and go, oh my God, I did that thing. I got a great result. And now I actually want to hire this person because I've initiated momentum. I'm ready for the next step. So yeah. And Lorianne just posted a great resource, askthepeople.com. You can go in there and, get questions from people that need help from people like us for solo episodes. So yeah, I'm a big believer in solo episodes, and that expert positioning really pays off if you're a service provider. So great question, DR. All right, who's next? Who would like to toss a thought or a question out there in regards to the discussion of the day here with making meaningful income, building your online business, and avoiding some of these mistakes? Rosemary, I'm gonna tag you in because you're another one of my certified podcast growth coaches. And if y'all are on Threads, follow Rosemary, the hottest follow on Threads. I'm number two. I'm number two.
You bloody well better.
Yes. God. And she teaches me awesome British terminology. I've been using the word bloke and bloody as often as possible. The bloody podcast bloke. That's why I refer. That's my new branding. It's just funny. And I don't try to do the British accent because I feel like it's funnier, like a dude from the Midwest saying words like bloody and bloke and like just totally just normal accent. So anyway, Rosemary, thoughts around like these types of mistakes, specifically like the naming thing, because that you and I spent a lot of time on that. Like we know how important this is. Like maybe just back me up a little bit on what you're seeing out there in the trenches when you're helping people launch and grow their show.
Yeah, no, definitely the same. Yeah, as you said, cute, fluffy, creative names are definitely where business owners or podcasters in general tend to lean towards. They've wanted to start a podcast for years. And so they usually, when they get to the point of starting, they've got the name already locked in. But I think a big part of it as well is that there's not SEO is kind of sort of in terms of Google, the traditional search engine optimization. Not a lot of people, it's getting better, but not a lot of people know that it could be applied to your podcast in lots of there's 5 different places that I teach my clients to optimize for search. But yeah, the name is the strongest one. And there's been a few times where I've had a bit of, pushback. No, this is the name. I'm like, do you want to grow or do you want to just come back to me in 12 months because you've not grown? So that kind of like puts a different spin on it. And I think part of that is maybe they don't, because I see it on threads. I don't know if you do. I see it at least once a day. Oh, I can't come up with a name. What do I call my name? And I try not to get roped into those threads because for me, it's part of the wider strategy. But something I definitely see come up that I need to work through with my clients and ask questions and we brainstorm together is around that keyword. And as you said, it's what is your show about? Who is it for? And incorporating that in, I think you say maybe 3 or 4 words. I do 3 to 5 words, but we don't want like a whole sentence, right? Something that they'll see on your cover art, instantly recognize themselves in, and gets them through to listening to your trailer or scrolling through your episode list or reading your podcast description. It's all part of the wider listener journey. But yeah, the name is definitely something that if I could wave a magic wand, everyone would just, I mean, granted, however, that my own podcast name is not entirely SEO optimized, but my show grows. So I like to tell my clients, don't do what I do what I teach you. You'll
Well,
see a lot more growth.
I mean, you've got a show about podcasting, the word podcast, and I feel like that's critically important. Like,
Yeah, so it's the podcast to amplify show, which the amplify piece means something to me. But yes, I obviously use your lovely name extension, title extension to incorporate the podcasting tips. But who knows, 2025, I might change it for the 3rd time and this time really nail. It's just because there's so many other podcasts out there and I want to stand out. And so I'm just letting it marinate. And normally it just comes to me in the shower or somewhere random. So,
well,
but
let
it's what I
me
teach my clients.
let me know if you want me to do like the movie trailer voice for like when you do the relaunch and like Rosemary's podcast, 3rd time.
Yeah.
This time it's for real. Yeah,
Yeah, it's here to
we'll set that
stay.
up. The bloody
Yeah, I'll reach
podcast
out.
bloke.
Oh God.
All right, now, and the thing we got to think about with the name too is like that search bar. Apple and Spotify search bar. Are any of the words in the name of your show any words that your ideal listener will put into Apple or Spotify in the search bar? Like I could have the name of my show, The Awesome Adam Experience, and maybe that's the name of my book, and maybe that's the URL of my website, and maybe that's even my Instagram handle, and I really don't care because none of those words are being searched. So I see that so often with people that are just like, my book is called The Awesome Adam Experience. I must call, brand alignment. I'm like, that has nothing to do with podcast discoverability. And you're basically cutting off, I believe, half of your podcast growth machine, where you can do online, you can do ads, you can do effort-based marketing, you can guest on other people's podcasts. All that stuff will grow your listenership. But the easy thing is the organic discoverability, like name it correctly, optimize things like your host description, your episode titles. Like that is so easy and simple to do. And it's the gift that keeps giving. I've got a limited series podcast called Podcast Monetization Tips. The tips are online coaches, consultants, and service providers. That thing, I've released 21 episodes a year ago. We're approaching 10,000 downloads on that show. And I have marketed 0. And I know there are a lot of podcasters that have hundreds of episodes and don't have half that amount of downloads because of organic discoverability. All right. I don't talk about it on social media. I mainly promote that limited series show when I speak on stages, and I'm speaking to 100 people, 200 people max. So it's not like we're setting the world on fire there. It's just people organically discovering it. So that's an example. All right. Any final questions with any of these topics that we discussed today? Anybody want to throw anything out there before we do? Yeah, Brad, go for it.
Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So here's my question is that, so I guess it's more for Rosemary. Well, you too, Adam. So when you said that you changed your podcast now a few times, how how did you do that, knowing that inside of the podcast audio, you had a different title? So I'm asking that because now this is making sense to me. Um, I don't really have a business behind my. I was hoping to like build a business around it
Yeah.
once I got the content. But this makes me think that, okay, well, maybe I should be thinking about a different title now that you're talking about this, which is great. But what did you do about, hey, you start out your podcast, and you just did, Adam.
Yeah.
Hey, well, welcome to Pod Pals.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're no longer Pod Pals.
Yeah.
Now you're
Yeah.
Pod Friends. Yeah, and it's, or something like that. How did you change it and still maintain your library?
Well, I'll tell you my perspective, and I'll let Rosemary kick hers in there. But the first 100 episodes of this show was called Casting the Pod. So,
Okay.
like, I've got 509 episodes live, but the first 100 were Casting the Pod. Terrible name. I use it as like the example. I had like 40 people listening per episode as Casting the Pod. It's play on words. I thought it was funny. I'm like, oh, a podcast about podcasting called Casting the Pod. Ha ha ha. Nobody listened. Nobody cared. 100 episodes. All right. That's how stupid I was. Like 100 episodes with this, like, not a good name. I switched to podcasting business school, and we like 10x downloads. And all of a sudden we're doing like 500 an episode, 1,000 an episode, 3,000. Like, it just started taking off. And I did it like a kickoff, like episode 101. I'm like, this is where we're going. Here's why we're doing this. I kind of relaunched it, and there was an explainer episode. So I've seen people do something like that, like where it's like really obvious in the title. This is why everything is changing, or new brand launch episode, or like something like all capitals and some emojis in there. That's like, this is a placeholder. Or a lot of people will create a trailer and have that posted where it's like, hey, just so you know, episode if you're brand new to the show, from episode whatever to whatever, it's this name, and now it's this, and every once in a while you could mention that in your episodes, like, hey, welcome to all the new listeners. This is blah blah blah, formerly known as the blah 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 podcast. If you listen backwards on episode, or if you like today, I referenced a couple episodes, I could say, hey, this is back in episode 42. This FYI. That's back when the show was called Casting the Pod. So you can do different reference points, but if people are there for your content, they're there for your content. That's my belief. And it's like, they're not going to be like, there's some explaining to be done here because I listened to episode 42 and it was a different name. What in the hell is going on here? I don't think we're going to make more of a big deal of it than our average podcast listener will. So, Rosemary, did I miss any strategies that you would recommend with kind of a relaunch, rebrand?
No, I think you've nailed exactly what I did. So I pulled up my content hub and I rebranded episode 87. So when I launched my podcast, it was called Too Busy to Podcast, which then turned into my business name. And like you said, Adam, yeah, I just did a really short, we've rebranded. Welcome to the Podcast Amplify Show episode, probably about 10 minutes, and went from there. I haven't changed. I think I re-recorded a trailer, but those first 86 episodes still have the Too Busy to Podcast references, intro, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and I think it's important, the more episodes, I think I saw Lorianne mention that she changed her name at episode 185. And sometimes podcasters can get stuck in, I must go back and re-record the older episodes. I've seen that a few times. I've had that conversation with myself as well. But it's important to know and recognize that your listeners are on a journey with you. So where you're at, I think I'm 185 episodes in-ish. So where I was at episode 1 and 10 and even 50 or 80 is definitely not where I am now. I knew nothing about podcast SEO back then. It was actually, I rebranded because I think episode 85, I had a guest on and she taught me about podcast SEO, and I went down that rabbit hole. Oh my gosh, I've avoided SEO for so long. There's a podcast version and it's not as complicated as like for Google. And so I've gone really hard since then. But yeah, just know that your podcast journey is an evolution, and your listeners, the people that are really there for you, like Adam said, they're not going to be tracking every single thing. Like if you were to like a full rebrand, new direction, maybe you've niched some more, new name, new music, then that's a rebrand. But if it's just the podcast name, then you don't need to have a whole, look at me, I've done it. Like just record an episode, re-record your trailer, update your podcast description so it speaks to the right person. And yeah, that's more or less it, really.
Did you change any of the art? Like, did you go? Well, I don't know if you
Yes.
guys this you went back and actually individually changed art for the episodes.
So I don't have individual
Oh,
episode
okay, I
art
do.
just
Yeah.
because Canva and I have a very strange relationship. In that I spend way too much time in Canva. So anything Canva related, I try to avoid. But yes,
Oh,
because when you change the name, you've got to change the
yeah,
cover art,
Yeah.
the trailer, updated
yeah,
the podcast description, updated the name and the host, re-recorded the intro and
right.
outro, and that was it. And that doesn't take very long, an hour, 90 minutes tops. Once you've landed on the name, you can just go ahead and get it done.
Yeah. I will say that that is the one really nice thing about. I don't know if anybody uses Buzzsprout, but
Mm,
Buzzsprout's got dynamic intro and outro and mid-roll.
yes.
So if you're gonna do an intro and you change it, then all of them change. And
Yeah.
the only thing
Yeah.
is what's inside, right? So when I start out, I'm like, hey, this is Brad, and you're on the next episode of Life-Changing Challengers. And all of a sudden I'm saying, well, no, it's not life-changing challenges anymore. It's be your best self. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're
Great
welcome.
question. Great question. And, as a kind of a closer point on that, like, I think the way a lot of us have lots and lots of episodes, I've got 509 episodes live. I view my show as like the most recent 100 episodes, like, the most recent, like 50 to 100 episodes. Like those are the episodes that somebody finds me today. They're most likely to dive into those. The real like psycho super fans will go back to episode 100 or, 1 or 100 or whatever. They'll go backwards, and we love those people. But, that's fewer and fewer people as we get lots and lots more episodes. So, something to consider that, like, all right, the last 50 to 100, am I really, cranking out great content? The branding is updated and all that. Then we can feel confident in that. So, all right, let's do some podcaster speed dating, y'all. The most fun you can have. It's been, nationally acclaimed and awarded the most fun a podcaster could have on a Tuesday, at 12:36 p.m. Central Standard. So, podcaster speed dating. Everybody gets 60 seconds. I want you to tell us the name of your show. If you have guests, who you're looking for as a guest on your show. Number 3 is, if you want to be a guest, what type of show do you want to guest on, and what can you talk about? And then make sure you let us know where to get a hold of you, so everybody listening in can reach out if they want to book you or connect with you. So, let's start with some people that have been here before. Lorianne. Lorianne's been to a lot of Pod Pal Zoom parties, so I want to acknowledge that. I feel like I should almost have like the YouTube plaque, like the play button for like the silver Pod Pal or something like that. Like you put it on your wall. I don't know. Maybe we'll work on that. But Lorianne, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you very much. This has been a very fun episode. I love learning from everybody. I am a reformed, painfully shy girl who accidentally became a professional speaker. Today, I work with coaches, consultants, and small business owners to help them write and deliver amazing presentations that they use as their best form of marketing and visibility. The name of my podcast is Be in Demand, with the lovely title extension that our chief pod pal has told us all to do. And do I have guests? Yes, I do have guests. I have one a month. So if you have a topic that is directly with coaches, consultants, service providers, small business owners, feel free to pitch me. I only have one guest a month. And right now I am up to March of 2025 is actually open. And if you have an audience that you feel is like coaches and consultants that would love to learn about the 20,000 speaking events that are happening today and the 20,000 that are happening tomorrow, feel free to reach out to me. And the best place to reach out to me is on my website. Just hit the contact page. That is super simple. And it is speakandstandout.com.
All right, Lori Ann, that's how you do podcast or speed dating right there, y'all. That was excellent. 60 seconds. I didn't have to play the walk-off music or anything. We're
Isn't
good to
that why
go.
you picked me?
Yes, like this is the standard. I'm gonna have the professional speaker get up here and do this first. All right, Dr. Why don't you go ahead and shout out your brand and your show? And I know you got something in the works that I'm very excited
Ooh,
about.
okay. I am DR. I am a podcast producer as well as one of Adam's certified growth coaches. Yay for me, I passed. And I'm finally doing a podcast of my own. It's going to be called the Podcast Help Desk. The concept is that podcasters leave a message on SpeakPipe introducing themselves, the title of their show, and what their show is about. And they give me one question, one podcast related question, and everything from what kind of microphone do I get to strategy, visibility, monetization, and more. And so not only do I dedicate an entire episode promoting your podcast, but I also troubleshoot whatever your issue or question is. And I'd love it if you'd like to get involved. I'm a great guest for anyone that wants to talk about pod fade, or my belief is that every single business needs a podcast, and I'd like to tell you and your listeners why. And you can contact me for either for guesting or about being a guest on my new show at mouthybroadmedia@gmail.com.
All right, DR. And we, DR and I have been working together with our certification, and I encourage all my podcast growth coaches. I'm like, you need to have a show about podcasting. And when she came up with this idea and presented to me, I'm like, this is so your personality. This is going to be great. I can't wait to listen to her show. So make sure you guys connect with DR, submit
Please.
some podcasting questions to the Podcast Help Desk podcast. It's going to be awesome. All right, let's keep going here. Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce your show?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. And also, it's a great opportunity to just meet more podcasters. That's always a fun thing. So before I kind of like dive in about myself, it's just fun to network, which I think is like a thing that we all need to constantly do. This is actually an interesting time because I'm actually in between shows. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to be quarterbacking a workshop. I'm in Canada, and it's with McGill Student Union, tentatively titled Podcasting 101. A lot of the elements that you all talked about. SEO strategy, monetization, which microphones do you use? How do I find your voice? Warm-up exercises, all those things and more. It's a lot of fun. And what crutch words to avoid, and just how to find guests, how to kind of farm out if you're going to be a content farm. All those things that not everyone knows, or if you want to kind of just have that brand extension to kind of further your pathway and always be creative and make it better than how you found it. That is my next horizon. Before that, I was working with the continuing education platform. So it was a podcast that was actually tailored to attorneys, engineers, HR practitioners, accountants, all those things and more. And it totaled around 300 episodes, equaling roughly 500 some odd hours of on-demand content. Occasionally it was live, but for the vast majority of these episodes, they were on demand, which I used to work as a live stream producer. If you can't do them on demand, I highly recommend, because if they will go wrong, if you thought that it's going to go wrong, I need to have that backup switch. Honestly, what I'm looking for is I would love to be a guest on someone's podcast, because I found that my last show was so interview heavy that I would just love to be asked the questions. I would love to see it on the other side of it. I think that might not be a very interesting creative exercise. What genres or anything else like that? I'm a political science grad, so anything in that news junkie like that, the news is the musical, but something like that. Comedy, definitely, and current affairs. So I think those are the three kind of Avengers Assemble sort of things that I find are in my repertoire. Doesn't have to be just Canada, because all things in equal, I've connected with people in Australia, the UK, all over the world, and those are kind of the things that I'm looking for. If people would love to connect with me, the best way is probably LinkedIn. It's Christopher Mines. That's my like handle, but you can also email me at christophermines@gmail.com. Even if you don't have to collaborate, I would just love it if people would say hi. That's always great. I find we're creative, sure, but some people, if they're new to the space, might be shy. What's the worst thing that can happen if you say hi? I might say hi back. That's it. Thank you.
That's our call to action today. Go and say hi to Chris on LinkedIn, and he will say hi back. That's my Pod Pals guarantee of the day. All right, let's go to Jessica. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey friends, this is my first meeting that I'm joining, so excited to be here. My show is Virginia Outdoor Adventures, which is about outdoor recreation in Virginia. That includes hiking, camping, kayaking, local travel, and more. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can also email me at jessica@virginiaoutdooradventures.com, and I'll put that in the chat box. But when I speak on other shows outside of Virginia, if people are looking for topics that don't have to do with the state, often I speak about utilizing nature and the outdoors to enhance both physical and mental health. And that's a really hot topic right now. So if anybody's looking for mental or physical health discussion as it relates to the outdoors, especially in the last few years, because there's been such a connection since the pandemic of people going outside more and discovering places nearby that they didn't know were there before. I'm happy to be a speaker on that topic.
All right. Thanks, Jessica. And great to see you here. And Jessica's got great podcast art. You need to go and check out her show. It's really, really excellent. All right. Let's go to Rosemary. Why don't you tag back in and tell us a little bit more about your show?
Hello, hello. I am Rosemary Calendar, host of the Podcast to Amplify show. I'm a podcast launch strategist and growth coach by, our biggest pod pal, Chief Adam. And I work primarily with women coaches, service providers, private practice therapists, helping them to leverage a podcast to market and sell their offers and position themselves as as it turns out, Lorianne, a be in demand speaker. I have been doing this for 4 years, nearly 4 years. Similarly to Lorianne, I do accept guests, but I'm not taking anyone until the new year. But if you do serve my audience, women coaches, consultants, service providers, and you have a topic around growing an online business that you love, feel free to reach out. As Adam mentioned, I'm over on Threads. I chat a lot at Too Busy to Podcast. Or if you want to learn more about me, check out the podcast or head to my website, toobusytopodcast.co.uk. And I'm not guesting at the moment. I've got too many projects lined up.
Too many projects, too many podcasts.
Too many projects.
Yeah. All right. Well, one day I'm going to get you to maybe,
I will. No, let's take that.
Okay.
back.
Okay.
Wind it back.
Okay. Just making sure that you take, if I send that invite out there for one of the 4 spots per year. No, well, I just want to have Rosemary come on and jam out, and I'll make fun of myself by trying to say English phrases, and it'll be a great episode. So lots of English phrase SEO. All right, Alyssa, go ahead and let's talk about your podcast.
Yeah, 2 English accents in a row. So hi, everyone. I'm Alyssa. I'm the host of the Regenerative Work-Life podcast, where I help purpose-seeking professionals to quit their corporate job and build successful careers that are rooted in nature, climate, and community. Regenerative Work-Life actually just launched last week, and thanks in no small part to Adam's excellent advice. It went really well. We hit top 50 in business and top 10 in careers in the UK, which is pretty cool for a regenerative topic. I am only doing interviews about once every 2 months, but if you happen to be an expert in regeneration, you're more than welcome to reach out. And I am actively guesting at the moment. So it may seem like a kind of niche topic, but one of the things I love to talk about is my own career journey and generally winding career paths. I've been an actor, an entrepreneur in the climate tech space for the last 13 years, and now I'm doing regenerative coaching. So I know a thing or two about unusual career paths and how to guide your career towards purpose and impact. So happy to come on your show and talk about that if that's something that interests you. And yeah, you can reach out and find out more about me and my work at regenerativeworklife.com.
All right, and congrats! I'm so proud of you on the launch. That's very exciting when somebody that you've mentored a little bit is out there getting great results. That's very exciting. Okay, let's go to Nikki. Go ahead and tell us about your show, Nikki.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki Green. I'm a life and business resiliency expert. I spent the last 20 years working in Silicon Valley and making them millions of dollars. And now I help aspiring entrepreneurs make at least some of that back. So I have a podcast called Stand Up and Stand Out, Parte y Desticate. We do a bilingual show. We talk about what are the causes that make you stand up for others, and how do you stand out by building your business? What are those things that are important to you? So all those wonderful things that Elisa just talked about of the twists and turns of your career are the things I like to bring to light to show how people can actually use those experiences in something they don't expect. And I'm about to go to Virginia, so maybe Jessica and I will hang out. Thanks for having me, Adam.
Nice. Now, if people want to reach out, where do they contact you at?
You can grab me at thenikkigreen360.com. Everything's on there. I've been on over 100 other podcasts, so if you'd like me as a guest, you can also see some of those wonderful interviews.
Awesome. All right. Reach out to Nikki. All right. Let's finish up with Brad. Go ahead, and you're the closer. No pressure, but this needs to be the best one.
Okay, well, my name is Brad Minus. I host the Life Changing Challengers podcast. It is an interview-based podcast where I interview people that tell their stories about how they overcame adversity, injury, trauma, sickness, and came out the other side being successful. Everything is on lifechangingchallengers.com. And I released number 35 yesterday, and number 36 is being released on Friday. And I'm also booked out until March right now, which is great. Right. So there's like 50 coming up. I've got 50 in the can and 50 more already scheduled. So it's great. But I'm not getting the numbers. So that's why I'm here. Hoping to make some more pod pals that can continue to help me move on. Seems like I've already come up with a couple of ideas that I need to move on. In real life, I am an endurance coach. I help people usually over the age of 40 run marathons, Ironman triathlons, ultra marathons, Spartan OCR races, and I coach them through that, which is how I got the idea for my podcast. So that's that. And yeah, it's great to be here. I appreciate the invite, and I hope to be on it again.
All right, Brad, welcome. And you're very new to the podcast game. I always tell people like that first 50 to 100 episodes, we're just figuring out how the heck to be a podcaster. So we got to kind of give ourselves some grace, take a little bit of pressure off, and just do lots of little micro pivots like we talked about today. That'll help out in a big way. So I appreciate everybody coming here live to be a part of this community style episode. I do this every single month. I have people ask me all the time, so I'll just say it. They're like, is it okay if I come back? And is it like free the second time? I'm like, yeah, I want, like, Lorianne's been to a ton, DR's been to a ton. Like, I want you all to come to this often as you want. And, and as long as it's providing value, show up, be a part of the episode. And it's not like a webinar or something. I teach this technique to some of my clients, and like, but what if they want to try to show up to more than one? I'm like, so that's the whole point. I want them to keep coming back. So, obviously I'm not going to hit the record off and be like, and now it's time to sell them all on my stuff. Like, that's not going to happen. This is just an episode. So I appreciate you all joining me here live. The October Pod Pals is on the calendar. Head to the website, podcastingbusiness.school, hit the freebie button, click Pod Pals Zoom party. Would love to have you there. Also, we are launching the Online Business Academy for Podcasters October 1. We've got founding member pricing going on. It's really, I'm very, very excited about that. It's the only online business academy just for podcasters. I would love to have you guys take a peek on the website. All right. I appreciate you all. I'm going to sign off, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you on the next episode. Breaking news, Pod Pals. My online business academy for podcasters will be launching on Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. This is the only online business academy just for podcasters that want to leverage their show to build an online business and get more clients. If you're interested in earning meaningful income every month with a podcast-first marketing strategy, this membership is for you. And this membership offer is backed by my $5,000 guarantee. I'm guaranteeing that you'll gain at least $5,000 in new revenue and new clients within your first 12 months of being in the academy. And if you don't, I'm going to keep coaching you within the academy for free until you do. I'm capping the membership at 50 total podcasters, and the membership price goes up after the first 20 podcasters sign up. Use the link in the show notes or head on over to www.podcastingbusiness.school to get on the waitlist to join. You'll have the first chance to grab one of those 50 roster spots and get the best pricing. Everything's launching on October 1st, so grab your spot on the waitlist and get ready to take your podcast-focused online business to the next level.